think we do veer back to fiction for sure lah. Most of our reading staple diet still falls on the fiction category. I can't say that non-fiction is a supplement for us. I think the lines are quite blurred for us lah. I think as long as it's a good book, we will generally pick it up, we'll read it in a sense, yeah.
And I think we only come to non-fiction when there's like a particular subject that touches us deeply, or like we really want to find out more about something, then we'll come to non-fiction. So I suppose more satisfaction comes from fiction again.
Mine is a very old story. I think a lot of people know that I like George Orwell. But on his lesser known books, which is Down and Out in Paris and London, I also love his essays a lot. He wrote a lot of essays during his lifetime. He wrote a lot of book reviews, essays and everything just to supplement his income as a writer. And Orwell is a person that he's a very observant eye for things, for society and current affairs during his time. He's also a very obstinate person. Obstinate enough for him to, when he wrote Down and Out in Paris and London, that he desired that back then he was already famous and not say very well off, but reasonable life. He decided to become he basically decided to become a tramp and a vagrant for 3.5 years, to so-called I guess in today it'd be considered journalism, where he wants to investigate how does a civilized British society and a Parisian society would treat its own people, when they are at that social status. The author that generally I'll pick up and read no matter what comes out is Martin Amis, son of Kingsley Amis. My first book from Martin Amis was actually not his fiction books. He's most famous for the book called The Rachel Papers, where he won a Somerset Maugham Prize as his father had did decades before him. But the book that I read from him was this book called Experience. It's his autobiography of his early life. As a teenager, growing up with his famous father, then eventually becoming a writer himself. So, Martin Amis always have that. Being British, he does have that dry, sarcastic humor about him, and very incisive comments on things around him and society. And as a fiction writer, he's a good fiction writer. He had 1 or 2 bad books, but generally everything that came out from him, like his first book, the Rachel Papers, it is a coming-of-age novel, but it's one of the more nicer coming-of-age novel that I read before. And yeah, it's very, very nice. Martin Amis, and he still writes he's a regular contributor to The Guardian UK to begin with.
For me, I think I like Vladimir Nabokov, and his most famous work is of course Lolita. But also, not many people know that he's actually a lepidopterist, which is a butterfly scientist. So I think it's nice to see that somebody who's really good at languages is actually also a science person. So I think I can relate to that in a way where I like literature, but I also sort of like natural sciences and non-fiction as well. And for somebody more contemporary, I like Miranda July. Recently I've been reading her. She's this new upcoming writer who is also a filmmaker and a visual artist as well. Her style is really, I would say, experimental. And the way she talks about things, okay, she could be talking about like how she's really upset, but she will be describing it in a way where you wouldn't actually normally read about, like maybe in normal literature or like old fiction, but she'll maybe talk about the sea or like waves. And I think in a way it's also very personal, where she sort of has a new point of view on things, as opposed to the old style literary classics where they sort of just describe the sky as blue, but she'll talk about it in different terms. So I think that's interesting.